Good morning, everyone. Hope you are having a great day. I am looking at some of the Chinese news today, so I thought I'll share them with you all. So this is just a Chinese website, then you can come up and every now and then they will update relatively sort of new information. So you can see the date here, 2023, 6. The date is 21st and it is a Wednesday, and the time when they sort of is currently in China. So the Chinese news is basically quite different from the West. They don't have a freedom of speech. So everything that gets published needs to be approved by the government or some entity. So it's very biased. So over here, I can see that Xi Jinping, which is the president of China, just had his third term renewed in China, which is technically not constitutional, but he is the president. So he's able to bypass the law and change that. So I think China is going to become more and more like Russia, where you have a president like Vladimir Putin being in the position for 20, 30 years. I think that's the route China's heading to. And over here, I can see that they're trying to strengthen relationship with the West. So the president visit the White House and senior officials to ensure them that China is not going to become the next superpower. They're not going to challenge America's authority, and the same obviously with the various other countries' diplomats. Over here, it's talking about the Chinese currency, how they are trying to use that to essentially buy various goods and services from other countries. And obviously, they also want to expand their sort of coverage around the globe. Then over here, I can see there's some news around America, since China sort of wants to take control of Taiwan. There's been some development and how politics are sort of taking a toll. So America has several military bases on Taiwan, and they obviously want to defend Taiwan because that is one of the very important geographical locations for the West. And also Taiwan also have a very big semiconductor manufacturing. They export all over the world. So if you think about the car that you drive, the cell phone that you have, the laptop or computer, all of those uses computer chips, and a large portion of that does come from Taiwan. And then as I scroll down, I can see there are some sort of military activities around the seas in Taiwan. I can see that China is trying to amend the relationship with the US, but obviously there are some impasses that has reached between both countries. Yeah, and a lot of this is essentially around Taiwan. So the Chinese news is quite centralized. As I mentioned before, they don't have freedom of speech. So journalists, whenever they want to publish stories, have to be gone through like a news entity, or the government needs to approve of these things. So in addition to that, the public or the people in China do try and use social platform to inform each other news that the government don't want them to see. But because China's internet is also controlled by the government, the Republic of China, they can also take down various articles and publications around this. So if they see that there are social platforms that posting things that they don't like, they can just remove it completely. So once again, the people are sort of left powerless in that sense. This is a sort of second Chinese website, CCTV. This is the sort of one of the main channels in China. And then they also have various news articles on here. So here I can see that on the 19th of June, the panda essentially had a baby. So China takes the pandas very seriously. This is one of the only animals in the world that China have and no other country have. And the panda's life cycle is very complicated. They can only mate, I think, once or twice a year. And because it's so infrequent, the male pandas are not exactly sure what to do, and so is the female pandas. So they basically are under care by various people. A few decades ago, there were less than a few hundred pandas all around China, but now they have increased the number to, I think, more than 2,500. And that's because they have both these conservation parks. They have people monitoring pandas essentially 24/7, ensuring that they are eating well, their medical care, and obviously birthing to help them reproduce. So I don't think it's no longer endangered species, but still they are trying to sort of maintain the dominance and oversight to protect these wild animals. Um, so over here, it's talking about self-driving cars and electric vehicles. So a lot of money is being spent on these development factories being built. Elon Musk, the head of Tesla, have also visited China in recent years to build huge manufacturing plants for Tesla to develop their own electric vehicle cars. And China is obviously getting their local brands to also try and catch up to the technology and obviously to the West. Over here, there's been some news around sort of pirates because China is surrounded by a large sea. So it's essentially China, Japan, and then like sort of Taiwan. So there are a huge body of water around these, and they are trying to sort of maintain the military presence there. So China do have vessels and warships that circles about and patrol those areas. Over here, it's talking. So there are essentially two massive rivers or big bodies of water that runs through most of China, which is Shanyu and the Yangtze River. And over here, it's talking about how they're trying to maintain the water levels throughout the dam and obviously maintain, during the different seasonal changes, how they're trying to impose and have implement more technology essentially to sort of oversee those things to make sure there's no natural disasters and such. And then other news, they're also talking about education here. Essentially, China's education is one of the top in the world. Like if you take a high school student from China and you compare them to a university student from the West, they are almost at the same level. Like the mathematics that they teach in China's primary school is essentially comparable to the mathematics in high school in the West. So the education system is being developed and they're trying to essentially maintain that at a certain level of standard. So that the government do ensure that the knowledge and distribution of advanced technology science is sort of accessible throughout China's entire population. Over here, it's talking about some of the food and other technology productions in China. So recently, we have all felt the pressure of the pandemic, how shutting down of different countries and manufacturing facilities has caused shortages of various items. So China is trying to essentially scale up its production and sort of automate a lot of the factories to ensure that even if there's less people, it's able to produce enough goods and services, and with its food, with its daily sort of products, it can sort of maintain that. There are some of these other news that's not really relevant if you're not living in China. It's essentially like local news about sort of everyday events, people, whether it's kidnap or crime, like certain it's very preventional. So unless you live in China, it doesn't really affect you as much. And then the last website I'm looking at is the ChineseNews.com. So this is quite a big and sort of social website. It's not political. It's more about the sports or day-to-day event of the cities or the towns. So like over here, you can see this camping sort of sites that's been built in China, and more and more people are sort of going to the outdoors. There's some events that's happening, street festivals, people gathering for celebrations, some sports news, and people obviously trying to sort of celebrate the heritage. And then as you scroll down, there's some weight losing sort of advice. I don't know if any weight loss program works that well. Over here, it's talking about 5G and how the technology is going to really speed up, the uh, internet and access to information online. Here, there's some sort of concert that's happening with some singers, and here it's really talking about the Chinese currency versus American currency. So the exchange rate is 7.179, and the Reserve Bank of China is trying to essentially keep that at the same level. As you scroll down, there are some sort of news around Taiwan and other provinces in China. There are some great music that's happening, and great concert, as I mentioned. So yeah, overall, the Chinese news is very biased, and if you are reading news, especially about China on news website like CNN, the Western channels, you need to realize that those news are only filtered through by the government. So not a lot of those news are, how do I say, it's very controlled, and it needs to be approved before it get published. So the freedom of speech is essentially taken away. And more often than not, China actually, the government actually omit a lot of information before it gets sent out to the public. So the news or the information that you receive is essentially not the whole picture. But yeah, take some skepticism the next time you read some news around other countries, and have a good day.